Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Xbox Casuals, the Xbox podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Deering. Alongside me, as always, is the Clockwork Revolution, Josh Finney.
No, man, I really like that.
Look, I had to give a positive nickname because not much else about this episode is going to be very positive.
No, it's really not. This is gonna be a tough episode.
Yeah, this is I'm really. We just got through all the negative Destiny stuff on Tower Casuals, and now we're working our way through this.
Through another round of negative Xbox shit. Yeah,
Josh, I'm upset.
You should be.
I'm just a little upset. I'm tired of talking about this stuff. Really tired of talking about this stuff, and I'm especially tired about talking about this stuff when some of it doesn't make sense. But I don't know. How's your Monday going, Josh?
Well, my teeth are a little sore. For those of you who do not listen to Tower Casuals, I had 2 root canals on Friday, so I'm a little sore. It has been an interesting weekend. They've told me to continue not to chew on that side of my mouth for a while. So yeah, that is. I'm experiencing a whole new world of chewing on one side of my mouth. I'm eating lots of macaroni and cheese and soup.
I like macaroni and cheese.
I'm a big fan of soup. I really like soup.
I'm not too hot on soup.
Corey, let me tell you something. My range of what I can eat is fairly limited right now. Okay, like without being in like some degree of like pain.
That's fair.
So I had soup for breakfast this morning.
That's sad. I'm sorry, Josh. That's sad.
I tried to chew Chick-fil-A on one side of my mouth for lunch. That actually went pretty well. I got nuggets. I cut them up. That went pretty decently.
Man.
But it's been a lot of like protein shakes and smoothies and things like that. So it's actually been kind of nice because it's like, oh well, this is one way to work on portion control, and to eat fairly healthy outside of the copious amounts of mashed potatoes I've eaten. But it's been an experience. I'm not like angry about it. Like I knew this was probably coming. It's just like it's being dragged out a bit longer than me or the dentist thought it was going to be, because it's going to take them a while to be able to get my crowns and things like that. So
yeah,
I've got a temporary one on there now. That's why they're advising me not to chew. It is very tender. I tried chewing today. Funny enough, they called me, or yesterday, I guess, they called me this afternoon and they were like, hey, how you feeling? And I told them, and I was like, well, I tried chewing yesterday. They're like, yeah, don't do that. I tried chewing a piece of cheese and it fucking hurt. So
yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah.
They're like, yeah, no, your teeth are like super vulnerable and super sensitive right now. They're like, just let them cook. The antibiotic I'm taking is making my mouth taste all weird too. So like I'm drinking just like tons of like water and like Gatorade and juice, just like trying to get that taste out of my mouth constantly.
Yeah.
It has not been enjoyable. So
that doesn't sound enjoyable.
It's fine. It's just like all this news comes out last week, like while I'm in pain and I'm annoyed. And it just like makes it worse because I'm like, I'm annoyed and I'm in pain. And now I'm seeing this, which is making me like viscerally angry. So we've had almost a week to process this. Should we just get into it?
Yeah, let's
just dive in. We got a lot to talk about here.
Oh, man, yeah. I actually played a video game though this week. So
oh, you did?
I was very excited.
I played Destiny, so you'll hear about that on Thursday.
Yeah, I played through the Stellar Blade demo.
Interesting. Did you like it?
I loved it. It's my kind of game. I'm
interesting
into it, and I'm not just talking about the jiggle physics and the the costumes. I'm talking. I like the combat.
Interesting. Okay.
It's that kind of, it's not Dark Souls-y, but it's like not fast, and I don't know how to explain it. It just felt really good to me, so I liked it. I will probably end up getting the game at some point, but anyways, I just wanted to mention that I actually played a video game this week, and it made me happy that I actually got to do that. Unlike this news, Josh, let's Where exactly do you want to start? I guess we could probably just start by saying that Microsoft has shut down 4 Bethesda-centric studios, including Tango Gameworks, developer of Hi-Fi Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo and The Evil Within, and Arkane Austin, developers of Redfall and Prey. Um, which some other stuff has come out since I kind of started this doc about how Arkane was kind of pitching like Dishonored 3 and how Hi-Fi Rush sequel was pitched, and it just made me extra sad.
Yeah, so let's start here. Let's start here.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Before we get into like some of the context and some of the stuff that came out in the days after, let's start here.
Yes.
Because this makes I want to, and I'm not going to attempt to like rationalize the decisions here. I'm going to say that it sounded like the edict. Matt Booty in his letter, and oh my god, I'm forgetting her name. Not Sarah Bond. It's the portfolio director over at ZeniMax. She had a piece in all of this too. Oh my god, I can't believe that I am blanking on his name. I'm pulling up an article to try and remember it. Anyways, I'm going to try and jog my mind. It floored me that they were closing down these studios. That was just shocking. It was absolutely shocking. I think when you look at Alpha Dog, okay, small team. It was kind of weird that it was a mobile team that they chose to cut when they're like about to do mobile work, but okay. You can rationalize it with Mighty Doom was not good. Roundhouse had not made a game of their own. Of course, Roundhouse is the former Human Head team.
Yeah,
they are the makers of the original Prey.
Yeah, and Prey. I mean, remember that Prey 2 demo that was kind of leaked or shown or whatever. It was.
I do, in fact, remember that. That is, this was just, it's shocking because, so Roundhouse is actually going to be absorbed by ZeniMax Online. I think that might have been weirder than anything else. It's like, oh, okay, so like you clearly want these people, but you like don't want their studio ? Like the only thing they'd really done since getting bought by Bethesda in 2019, because they got shut down and then immediately opened a new studio under Bethesda, essentially. The exact same people. Very weird to me. Like they had done support work on Redfall, and that was all they got a chance to do. They never got a chance to launch an original game. And then it gets weirder as it goes down. So Arkane Austin, we just like literally like a year to the day ago had Phil Spencer out there saying, no, we're not going to close down Arkane Austin, regardless of how bad Redfall was and this and that. And the fact that had to be walked back really makes me wonder if this was a board decision and they basically told. It's kind of, if you read through the lines, it feels like they didn't get too much of a say.
This whole thing feels like Xbox leadership versus the Microsoft board sort of thing. This whole thing feels like that. It just...
Yes.
The whole thing. I mean, even stuff we're going to talk about later feels like that.
Yeah, I was not overly thrilled with some of this. And it's like, okay, well, they did just put out Redfall a year ago. Like, okay. And then you get to Tango, and Tango is maybe the most baffling. Not even the most baffling. That's the one that I think got people viscerally angry, because like the other three, I want to say it might have been, and I might be misattributing here. I feel like it was Brian Altano who said it. That was like, if you had just closed the other three down, it would have been bad, but you might have been able to weather that storm, because people would have had the kind of like the coping and the realization, like that I'm like the rationalization I'm trying to have here, right?
From a purely business perspective, they all make sense.
As horrible as it sounds to say out loud, like they make sense. And I want to be really clear, like when we say it makes sense with Arkane, this is not to excuse anybody's livelihood that is gone now. I still think that Arkane Austin is a more talented studio than most studios on the planet. It was said last year when all the shit came out about Redfall, and I think it was Jason Schreier who published that article too, who was like, basically everybody who ever worked on Prey or Dishonored was essentially gone, with the exception of a handful of people. But that like most of those folks had left over the course of Redfall's development because they didn't want to make a game like Redfall.
Mhm.
Um, I know that should not be at all comforting to anybody, but like, okay, you can kind of be like, well, they were probably never going to make those kinds of games again, but maybe they were getting back to it with another Dishonored or maybe a Dishonored spinoff like Death of the Outsider. Um, it's all just very weird and fucked up.
Yeah.
Um, I don't even know where to begin with this because they hadn't even fulfilled the obligations of the $100 version of Redfall that they sold with the DLC. That was
Mhm.
never finished. That's what they were working on up until the night before the studio closed down
Yeah.
in Arkane. Tango is just you made a fucking Game of the Year nominee. You made a game that was still receiving awards 3 weeks ago. You want a
Yeah.
fucking BAFTA, man. Like, what more do you want? Like, that is everything you should want in a prestige title from a studio. And that's where it makes me feel like Johnny Pencil Pusher, who's looking at these spreadsheets over there in accounting, basically said you need to get rid of these studios when honestly, those studios are probably a rounding error on Microsoft's profit margins. Like, it cannot be that dire and that important to $1 trillion company that you need to close down Arkane Austin and Tango Gameworks.
Mhm.
It just can't be. It just can't be.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't divest at least. And like
Right.
so now, like, and I want to highlight how asinine this is, okay? Because like if they really came in and told them you have to shut down X amount of studios, like imagine being told that and looking at the Bethesda portfolio and seeing that you have Bethesda, you have ZeniMax, Machine Games, two divisions of Arcane, Tango, and id, and you have to close two of those. What the fuck do you close?
Right.
Like the thing that Matt Booty said was that he was basically like, yeah, we're basically gonna go into teams that haven't started work on their follow-up games yet. And I just God, I fucking hate it. I fucking hate that.
It's I just don't know what to say, man. It's just like
There's nothing to say.
high
There's nothing to say.
high five. I mean, you close a studio that makes a game that makes your well, first game that the community loves in years. First of all, like your first party non like okay, Psychonauts maybe, yeah, people liked it, but that game was being developed before Microsoft bought Double Fine,
Yeah,
right?
this was like one of the first games that was fully under your umbrella from the
Yeah,
Bethesda purchase.
yeah. It gave you prestige. It gave you
Yep.
awards. People
It did what
universally loved it.
Starfield didn't.
Yeah, and then you just close the close the studio. I don't get it.
So okay,
And it's not
I
like
found the
they've
quote. I found the quote I wanted to find. I found the quote I wanted to find finally.
great.
From Jill Braff, who's the head of ZeniMax Studios, said in a town hall she hoped the reorganization would allow the division, which also develops Fallout and Doom, to put more focus on fewer projects. It's hard to support 9 studios all across the world with a lean central team with an ever-growing plate of things to do, she said, according to audio of the meeting reviewed by Bloomberg News. I think we were about to topple over, she said. Both Tango and Arkane released games last year and were looking to hire additional staff as they pitched new projects, which Booty and Jill Braff suggested was the main factor behind their closures. Shinji Mikami, Tango's founder and the studio head, had departed last year. I just, I don't understand. So I'm trying to rationalize. So when they say they have 9 studios, that I'm assuming that that probably includes Roundhouse and Alpha Dog, right? So
Well, it's
you have the 4 that closed that don't exist anymore: ZeniMax, Bethesda,
id Machine
Machine
Games.
Games, Arcane Leon.
Yep.
So like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you could have made cuts. I mean, maybe you could have closed. Bethesda itself has like 4 different studios. Maybe like one of those. I don't advocate for anybody to be closed. Maybe one of those could have been absorbed by ZeniMax to like keep Tango open. Like, I just can't believe. And obviously, we don't know everything that has gone on behind the scenes. I just can't understand how anybody arrived at anybody who claims to love games can arrive at the conclusion that those 2 studios needed to go.
Yeah.
Like this, and there was one that I saw. It's a reaction I saw last week, and I'm trying to find exactly who said it because I want to attribute it correctly. I smashed the like button. It's Kirk McKean said on Twitter, "Call me a cynic, but I doubt this would have happened if Xbox didn't spend a ridiculous amount of money acquiring Activision. You can't tell me you're a company with passion for the art of video games while shuttering studios with such a distinct individual style." I have to agree with this. This is spot on. You. That's what makes me think that this is more like I want to be really clear. Phil Spencer and Matt Booty are not they are not blameless in this. They still ultimately made the decision.
Yeah.
So whether it came from them or it came from corporate, it came from somebody that made this just ridiculous asinine decision. And I'm going to agree here. Like you guys have heard me for on this show for a year. You've heard me on other various shows, through Boss Rush and through Tower Casuals for the last almost 3 years screaming about how much I did not want this deal to go through.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I was worried about, that there were too many studios. That has always been my concern. I think if you had just stopped at Bethesda, you could have managed the entire portfolio. But acquiring Activision is feeling more and more like that was something that they were told to do. And I saw the analogy I saw was that the Eye of Sauron has now turned and is looking straight at Xbox. Xbox used to be like so insignificant in the scheme of things for Microsoft. It was like a fun little pet project for them. Now they just spent combined on Activision and Bethesda over the last 4 years. They have spent like $75 billion or something on studios, and surprise, we can't handle all this. And I think also the accountants that don't know anything about video games are looking at this and going, those studios are not making us the money that World of Warcraft, Diablo, and Call of Duty are.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to just irreversibly damage the relationship that Xbox has with its studios, not just at Activision Blizzard, not just at Bethesda, but like the story that comes out the next day is that it's not over yet. They're looking at the core studios next. And let me tell you, when you look at those studios, a lot of those are like more specialized and smaller teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm worried about some of those teams, man. That's where like it's time to put up or shut up if you're fucking Phil Spencer. Resign and protest or something. I don't know. Make it clear that this is not your decision.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Xbox Game Studios proper, no Bethesda, no Activision, I think there are studios that clearly need removed. I look at the initiative. That studio has been a problem. They've lost talent over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where they've brought in Crystal Dynamics to develop Perfect Dark. That studio is a huge red flag. I mean, I would almost argue 343, except for the fact that they've kind of turned Halo around, and Halo makes them money regardless, right? Because that's their game as a service at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the two studios that looking at they've just been troubled since they started, arguably.
So,
I mean, as much as you and I like Halo 4, like,
yeah,
a lot of people didn't, and a lot of people think that the Halo downward spiral started there,
which I think is really silly to say that of a game that sold 15 million copies. But
yeah.
I'm gonna say this. I never advocate for anybody closing, but you look at some of these core studios and just how many of them have, we had all the issues at 343, right? We've had how many big issues did we have at Undead Labs that took forever to resolve? It took them years to figure out how to use, decades even, to figure out how to use Rare properly. They're just, the initiative is just a catastrophe at this point. I will say this. I think that when you look at the core studios, I actually don't think anything is like super imminently in danger of being closed with the core studios. Rather, I think it's going to be trimming the fat. In their words, it's going to be trimming the fat. It's going to be another round of 8% layoffs. My guess would be 343, Mojang, Turn 10.
But 343 already cut a lot of their studio.
I understand. 343 still has like 400 employees. and
Yeah.
they're not actively working on a game. They lost control of the multiplayer portion of Halo. Basically, all that they put out for Halo in the last year is some Forge maps, like a new mode or two, and some tuning changes. They really haven't done much else.
Hmm.
They already said that they were shifting into like not end of service, but like maintenance mode for that game, which
Hmm.
Jesus Christ, like they've basically butchered all the goodwill they got from the changes they made a year ago. Like the competitive community is furious over the game right now. It's becoming one of those things like I can't help but feel that 343's days are numbered. I don't think that they'll die off here, but I do think 343 is going to be drastically reduced in scope, and I actually would not be shocked to hear that the coalition is going to take over Halo. Gears 6 is going to presumably end that saga, and I actually think it would be perfect to get some new blood in on Halo. And there's nobody at Xbox better suited to do a new era of Halo than let Certain Affinity do the multiplayer and let the Coalition's writers cook on a story.
Yeah.
They're also with that game switching to Unreal 5, you'd be handing it to the best Unreal 5 studio at your company.
Yeah.
So, which makes it easier to hire people or to bring in contractors. I have
Yeah.
to think
I
turn sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I think the coalition is probably arguably maybe not the pinnacle studio for them, but I think they are arguably the most important studio because of the Unreal stuff.
I think that when you look at like the core Xbox studios and you look at like probably who's most important overall, it is some combination of the Coalition, Playground, and Obsidian at this point.
Yeah.
Obsidian's been a fucking workhorse.
Yeah. I
They've
mean,
put out
they're
three,
Xbox's Insomniac. They've just been pumping
yeah,
out games.
three. They've done three games since the purchase. They kind of fit the portfolio of what Matt Booty said in the town hall on Wednesday that they were looking for, which is teams that can make. And when he said smaller games, Jason was trying to get people to understand that he didn't mean like in length. He
Hmm.
meant in length of development time. And like Pentiment was a game that started out with just Josh Sawyer and Hannah, the art director, working on it, and that team eventually grew to 14 people before launch.
Hmm.
But they were working on it solo, like just the two of them, for like over a year. And that game still from like conception until it came out was like 3 years, and that included COVID. Grounded was 20 months from the time that it was first pitched, which was right around the time that Xbox purchased Obsidian. That was part of the original pitch, from my understanding, is that they pitched Grounded. They wanted to do something new and unique. And 20 months later, again, during COVID, they launched it into early access and then continued to work on the game for another 2 years, get it launched, and then still kept adding on to it. And that was a team of what I think at its most 18 people. So like
Yeah.
those, I think those are the timelines. Like when he's talking about it, that he wants people are like, well, Hi-Fi Rush was a small and short game. Like, yeah, Hi-Fi Rush also took like 4 or 5 years to make. Like because they were working on Ghostwire at the same time. This was a studio that did not have experience working on multiple titles, whereas like Obsidian's kind of done it for like their whole history. And I think at a certain point, you have to look at some of these teams that are doing like games as a platform. So like that's why I think Turn 10 may be in a little bit of difficulty, but they can be like, hey, Turn 10 has like 230 employees. What if we axe like 15 to 20 of them? You know, we axe like 15 to 20, and then boom, they're satiated. Like it's a studio that like, because they try explaining to an accountant like, hey, they make all the tech for our racing games and for Fable. Like we kind of need them to exist.
Hmm.
Even though I think you can definitely make the argument, and you would not be wrong, that Horizon has become the more important of the two Forza franchises to Xbox's overall goals. It's a more casual oriented experience. It definitely reviews better. It has been made better. Um, and, you look at something like Mojang. Mojang has like 600 something employees. Like, what are y'all doing over there?
Right.
I know that they made Dungeons and they made Legends and this and that. And I think Dungeons was a cool idea. And it definitely was better than anybody thought it was going to be. It got, like 2 years of support, I think. It got 6 or 7 DLCs. Um, and that's cool. Like that's the kind of stuff I think that like Booty is looking for, because they want those like appetizers and desserts in between the main courses. And games are getting more and more expensive to develop. It makes sense why they are saying like we need smaller, cheaper games.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think somebody had to have looked at the sheet of how much these games are costing over there, and with them all about to start like coming out in like an avalanche, they're probably like, oh shit, we cannot sustain waiting another 4 or 5 years for another wave of games. Like we have to have stuff in between. There has to be stuff spread on. I think the idea is, yeah, you can take 4 or 5 years for your main team to make that big, gigantic Starfield-esque experience, or your Hellblade experience, this just incredible graphical showcase. But can you have like a smaller team of like 20 to 30 working on like a smaller game that you can put out in like 2.5 years? I think that's what they're ultimately trying to get at. And there are better ways to go about this rather than us just trying to infer and guess the whims of billionaires. But that's the only conclusion I could really come to. I think the longer that some of these studios take to make games, because you also have to account for so many of the studios they bought in 2018 have yet to release a game under the Microsoft banner.
Right.
Like Undead Labs, they made a game. Their State of Decay 2 came out in 2018, the month before they were bought by Microsoft. They have yet to release State of Decay 4 or State of Decay 3. It's been 6 years. It will be 7 years minimum by the time that game comes out. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. And they've had a studio helping them make the DLCs and the add-ons for 2 this whole time also.
Right.
So what the hell? I know that a whole studio change had to go through. Microsoft was reportedly very frustrated in early 2022 at the lack of progress on State of Decay 3, and that a whole HR investigation happened, and they had to do mass firings of the people in charge and the HR director and all this and that. So you got to wonder what the hell's going on there. I think part of them is going, what the fuck has happened? Why is Ninja Theory taking forever? Ninja Theory is one of those studios, though. You just got to kind of like back off and let them cook. You did not buy Ninja Theory or Double Fine for their ability to just like pump games out. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean,
you,
like your games as a service like Minecraft and Halo and Gears are supposed to supplement the cost of these
right.
smaller games, so
Well,
you
and
can
like that's
have
what we all hoped, I think, that
diversification,
Call of
right?
Duty would do.
Yeah. So man, it's just, yeah. Anyways, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, no, no. You're good. I mean, I'm just like kind of on a whim out here. I don't know what else to really say. It's like Double Fine was bought in 2019. They put out one game in 5 years, and that was Psychonauts 2, which was supposed to be out in 2020 and got delayed, and finally came out in 2021. Like, okay, like we've all heard the story, that Tim Schafer said, oh yeah, we didn't have the money to like even put boss fights in the game, and then Phil saw the game and was like, put the boss fights in, it'll make the game better, and this and that. The initiative is just bleeding money. Founded in 2018, has yet to even put out a single ounce of gameplay footage in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like we're going to talk about it on the next episode, but there's been rumors swirling that we'll finally see Perfect Dark in June. I'm
Yeah.
not holding my breath. Like that game is probably still 18 months away, minimum.
Yeah.
Um, I think a studio like Playground is probably safe because again, like, hey, they make Horizon, and they clearly were trusted enough by Xbox leadership to take over Fable, which is huge. Rare makes Sea of Thieves, which is hands down their most successful game right now that is developed in house and is not Call of Duty. So, like, it starts becoming a question of, okay, well, like, where can we trim some fat from on these teams? Like, these teams that aren't, like, yeah, they've got service games, but they're not putting anything new out. Like, Everwild has been stuck in development hell for 5 years now. Announced before the Series X even was, and we have never seen an ounce of gameplay footage from it.
Yeah.
We've just seen 2 CG trailers, which like establish a really cool world, but that game's going to look nothing like that by the time it comes out, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were saying back in like 2019, 2020, man, this could be Xbox's Breath of the Wild moment. And well, that game's never coming out.
Yeah.
So how many resources have been burned on that? How much money's been burned on that? And I think that's the other thing they're looking at is like the longer a game takes in development, the more expensive it becomes because you're paying staff for that whole time. You're paying overtime and all this and that. Like the games are getting exponentially more and more expensive. That's not counting, voice talent. That's not counting, senior roles and this and that. People who depart, people you have to rehire, this and that. Like you got a big name writer, you're probably gonna be paying more money. You got a big name director, you're gonna be paying more money. Big name voice actor, you get the idea. Like those accountants want to see an ROI at some point. And it's funny because like I think that's in a way that echoes the frustration that a lot of us have had with Xbox of the lack of AAA games over the years. But the one thing that they've done really, really well that you and I keep giving them flowers for is small games.
Mhm.
They have excelled at putting out small games since like 2019.
Mhm.
And you just got rid of one of those studios that was best suited to maybe keep doing that for you. Also, you just lost your only Japanese studio, so good luck there. Because you can't just go in and buy a Japanese studio if
I
you're an
know.
American company. It's good fucking luck there. But again, like it comes down to like if they were told to cut 4 studios, who the fuck else were they going to close? Like I don't know. Like I don't know how much of a fight there was here. Just 2 months ago, Sarah Bond was there visiting them. Like
Yeah.
what a just like punch in the dick. Like
Yeah.
you have to wonder like, man, if they had maybe like pitched a
Yeah.
sequel within like a couple months of Hi-Fi Rush coming out, would that studio have been saved?
Right. And then they marched her out to Bloomberg to try to try to put a band-aid on this mess, right? Like,
Yeah, and like I understand that like she should have been better prepared for that because she 100% should have. But also like that is not her department. She's over hardware. She's not
yeah.
over studios. That is Phil and Matt.
Yeah. I mean that's Matt Booty in particular, right? I
I'm
mean,
gonna
he's
I'm gonna say right now, like I was really leery when they announced he was going to oversee everything for games and not just the core studios anymore. I think it's too much for one person to oversee. Um and I think it leads to things falling through the cracks. I mean, how do you have management issues at so many different studios over the years? 'Cause you couldn't keep an eye on them when they were just Xbox studios and like now Bethesda is going to pay the price. Activision Blizzard has already paid a price. Your core studios are now going to pay a price. Like at some point, management has to answer for it. And we've got the showcase coming up on the 9th, and IGN's been promoting this for like a week now. That IGN Live is happening that weekend, and they have an exclusive interview with Phil Spencer right after the conclusion of that um, showcase. I'm telling you right fucking now. I hope that Ryan McCaffrey and Rebecca Valentine are the two that are in that room to just grill the shit out of him on this.
yeah.
It cannot be another softball kind of funny interview. Like I'm really sorry. I like the kind of funny guys, but that interview last year was fucking soft.
Yeah.
After Redfall came out to those reviews, that was fucking soft.
Yeah. It was
And I'm just like I'm so far beyond that at this point. Like there need we like as a gaming community, as consumers, are owed explanations. You closed down an award-winning studio that just got their big break. Because let's not kid ourselves. Evil Within 1 and 2 were niche games that the horror community liked. They did not get widespread recognition, even though they were from Shinji Mikami. It was Hi-Fi Rush that was kind of the breakout. It didn't sell like a breakout, but everybody that I personally saw that played it or that I talked to who played it was like, man, they had something really special here.
yeah.
So that IP just like goes into the closet now. Like, what do you even do? Like, if I swear to God, if I see another studio make a game in that series ever, I better not see this IP ever again. That's what I'm getting at. I better not ever see Hi-Fi Rush again as an IP. Here's the worst part: that game's going to get delisted in a few years too when the music rights are up.
Yeah,
They
if
were
you want
working on a
if
streamer mode.
yeah. Well, they have one.
Oh,
It's in
excuse
there.
me. Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's still that that game as you know it is going to get delisted. So you better if you want Hi-Fi Rush to exist in the next decade, you better buy that limited run copy, I guess. It's coming out soon.
It's so fucking stupid.
I know. I mean all that's Is that the move now that they're making, by the way, on these? Because like Hellblade's not getting a physical copy until Limited Run makes it, and it's coming to everything. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I don't know what you do, man. I couldn't tell you who to close out of those studios at Bethesda. Tango hurts is the one that hurts.
Yeah, that's the one that it is soul crushing for me. Like not that Arkane Austin isn't also soul crushing. I would say at least Leon exists, and I saw somebody say like, "Damn, it's probably a really good thing that Leon is working on Blade right now."
Yeah.
And I kind of have to agree.
Yeah.
Because I think that the choice would have come down. I mean, also like, thank God, Machine Games is working on Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But maybe the silliest take I saw was somebody being like, "Oh, well, I'm just so worried about id Software. You know, like Doom just doesn't sell." And I'm like, "What the fuck planet do you live on? Like, Doom Eternal sold like 9 million copies. What are we doing here? Like, Doom doesn't sell. Doom is the franchise that does sell. Like, of any of the non actual Bethesda games."
Yeah. I mean, Doom. Yeah. It's I mean, I don't know if you're gonna to close between Doom and Machine Games, you would close Machine Games because Wolfenstein's the game that doesn't sell.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And it's just like, but even then, you could be like, "Oh, well, we're gonna absorb them," and they're just because I mean they exist in Germany, which is where, or excuse me, they're in Sweden. But it has a division in Germany. You can be like, "Oh yeah, they're just gonna become a part of that," or we're gonna split them between there and Lyon. Like, there are things you could have done here, is what I guess I'm trying to get at. Like, that do not involve closing a studio. Like, I really wonder how much they fought back. I wonder if there was any sort of fight here when they were told that, because that would be, there's gonna be a documentary on this or a tell-all in a couple of years, and I just can't wait to see it, because I don't understand how Tango is the one that, again, like, I feel like if it's just a slightly different scenario, like we're maybe like a year's difference, like Machine Games might have been the one. And that's not me saying that Machine Games deserves it either, because they're an outstanding studio.
Yeah,
they're an incredible studio. Wolfenstein is the way that you do a fucking reboot.
Yeah,
but
Wolfenstein. I mean, Wolfenstein 2 is amazing.
But I feel like, again, accountants would have looked at them and like, well, they haven't had a major release since 2017. 7 years.
Yeah.
7 years between that and this. I mean, they put out Youngblood. We can't forget Wolfenstein Youngblood, which may not work in their favor, but it's like, are you fucking kidding me? I couldn't find any actual sales numbers on Doom. I was just like,
I was thinking too. All I saw was in 2020 it sold 3 million units. That's all I saw. That was the only number.
That it sold 3 million copies in its launch month. And it was still only the 4th highest grossing game of that month. So
no, it was behind Animal Crossing also.
Yeah, Doom Eternal sold really fucking good, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it from anybody. It sold really, really good.
If it tells you anything, it sold 1.6 million units on the Switch alone.
Yeah, and Doom 2016 also sold very well. So no, I think it is safe, but it does probably make the idea of them doing a Quake reboot seem a lot slimmer now, because one of the things that Matt Booty said is they want to focus on existing IP.
Right. Well,
and their bigger IPs.
What was the Doom game that leaked? Wasn't
Doom
it like
Year
Doom
Zero?
0? Yeah, that seems more like the way.
Yeah, it's either got to be that. I mean, it's basically got to be that at this point, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be safe, then yeah, that's exactly what you're making.
Yeah.
But going back real quick to like the pushback and any fight or anything, like, my guess is that there was some sort of fight, or at least some loud discussions in the boardroom of like, you got to be kidding me, like, we told them that, like, this is what we told them when we bought them, this and this, and now we have to, go tell them that they're out of a job and that the studio's closing. Like, I'm sure those conversations happened, but at the end of the day, like Microsoft is Microsoft and Xbox is like their hobby brand at this point, essentially, because they make what less than 8% of the entire company's
Which is
revenue.
like crazy to say that because like that's the thing is I think they were a hobby brand before the Activision purchase.
Yeah.
I think even the Bethesda one they were going to be able to skate by even if Starfield just did what it did. Like Starfield does what it does and you're like, okay, well, you know, we've got Doom and we got Indiana Jones on the way in the next 18 months. Fine. Okay. But the punch of Redfall sucked ass. Starfield was underwhelming. No matter what how you slice it, I really liked it. I had it at number 10 on my list. It was still underwhelming. Um, it doesn't matter how good Indiana Jones is this year now. Now you're in a pickle.
Yeah.
Now you're in a real pickle. Like Hi-Fi Rush was unexpectedly the hit for them last year. I
Hmm.
don't think anybody like they shadow dropped it in January for fuck's sake, Corey.
I know.
Like they clearly did not expect this game to be as good as it was.
No.
And lo and behold, it was their best game of last year by far. Not even a contest.
No. Not even close.
So, and what's the reward? You get fucking shut down.
Right.
Like your game so your game reviews poorly, shut down. Your game wins awards, also you get shut down. Like there is a no-win scenario right now if you're underneath the Microsoft umbrella. And I want to pose this question to you: Do I saw this take floating around, and I don't really agree with it, but I want to get your 2 cents on it before I give mine. Do you think that this affects outside companies wanting to work with Xbox in the future?
Um, I don't think the studio closure stuff does. I
Okay.
think it's more the hardware sales and the like, because like I had my opinion on Game Pass has swung exponentially the other way in a negative way. I think not a negative way, but just from a like a business perspective.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that the lack of hardware sales mixed with Xbox's ecosystem essentially encouraging people not to buy games because of Game Pass. Like I think that's what's discouraging certain developers from putting games, especially smaller developers, because like the Game Pass bag is dried up, right? They are no longer giving, overpaying for indies or just want
I
games.
don't know how much I believe that. I'm gonna be just
No,
I've shared this opinion, but I don't know how much I believe that.
I mean overpaying for games. I don't mean like they're not paying indies to come to
Okay,
the
got you,
platform.
got
I
you.
mean like
Because like the only person I saw that from was the Slay the Spire devs, and I'm like, yeah, they're probably not paying for your fucking game.
no,
Like,
yeah, no, I mean like they're not overpaying for games. They're still paying indies to put games on their game.
oh yeah,
Of
I mean
course
you
they
have
are.
to.
I mean
Yeah.
that's like the big draw at the
But
thing to
I
put
mean,
like
they are. Jeff Grubb has even said like that Game Pass is going to become more of a service for basically indies and third party deals. Like rather than like you're getting this to supplement your first parties because like they're trying to figure out how to make Game Pass still profitable. That's dried up. The
yeah,
Game Pass profits have dried.
yeah.
They're not. They're seeing
It's not
single digit
growing.
increases if they're lucky.
It's shrinking. Like Game Pass Ultimate is shrinking.
I just I don't know like if you look at this like there was one of the internal debates that was going on apparently was can we actually afford to put Call of Duty on Game Pass?
Yeah,
And I don't think we're going to know the exact answer of that regardless of what Sarah Bond said this last week of all first party games are still coming to Game Pass. There's a lot of wiggle room in that answer.
yeah.
Um
I mean, we've had that discussion of like Game Pass should be Xbox Game Studios games, and then Bethesda games maybe 6 months later, or a game by game basis. You judge that on, right? Like maybe Hi-Fi Rush would come, but maybe
yeah,
Doom would
I'm gonna
sell.
be really, really honest. I think that like you said, the Xbox Game Studios games should always be on there. That
Mhm.
is non-negotiable. I
Yeah,
think when you look at like Bethesda, I think honestly you can make the argument that anything that is not from Bethesda itself or maybe id should be included. Because I do think machine games should fall into that. I think Tango should have. Arcane absolutely has. I'm really worried about Arcane in the long run. Arcane's games historically do not sell incredibly, but they are very, very well reviewed. So if you want the prestige, you've got to be willing to accept some sales trade off. And I think the whole thing is like they can't do that for everyone. Like they can't make that
hmm
deal for every studio, right?
yeah.
Like your Activision games, I'm gonna be really honest. Like outside of like, unless they let like High Moon make a game, your
Mhm.
Activision games probably shouldn't be on their day one. You should probably be waiting 6 to 12 months for those
I-
games.
My my thought with Activision is like any Activision Blizzard studio that's making an Activision Blizzard IP game, they should just sell it. But like if High Moon was going to make like this isn't happening, I don't even know if I would want this to even happen ever. But like if High Moon was to make Banjo, right?
Yeah,
Banjo would be on because it's a rare property, right? So like I would, maybe that's your wiggle room there. But like the next Diablo, the next Call of Duty, the next Overwatch, whatever, sell it, sell it, sell it. Who cares?
yeah.
I mean, that precedent's already there anyway.
I think that I think that's there at this point, right? I also saw like the throw out that like maybe they still let you get something like Call of Duty, but they do a more expensive tier of Game Pass to include it.
Yeah. Or
And
if you're a Game Pass subscriber, maybe you get if you I don't know, maybe you get the deluxe stuff as part of your perks, right?
yeah, so like you just
Right.
have to buy the base game or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like there's different things you can do, but I think that this year's Call of Duty will probably go to Game Pass just to try and boost those numbers. And when they see it's not really going to work, and they see the revenue dip in other areas, they're gonna be like, nope, fuck it, we got to pull it. We already said on this very show that we both think that Hideo Kojima's Overdose and Arkane Leon's Blade probably will not be on Game Pass.
No.
I'm actually very surprised that Indiana Jones is going to be allowed to, but I think that's because even Disney knows that's a more niche property. Like Blade definitely is, but Blade also just has the big ass Marvel logo slapped on it too.
Hmm.
I would
Yeah.
also like. I'm willing to bet that that is not an exclusive game. I'm willing to bet that goes to other consoles.
What, Indiana Jones
No
or
Blade,
Blade? No,
Blade.
yeah, no. I mean, when they announced it, they gave no indication that it was Xbox exclusive.
Right, like the cat was kind of out of the bag early on that one. So
Yeah.
I'm
Plus,
not.
it's
I'm not sure.
Marvel. I would I would say anything linked to a licensed property is probably multi-platform at this point, anyway.
Right, which like I don't think is bad at all.
Especially when the mouse is in charge.
Okay, so can I pose a question that we have in our
Yes.
rundown to you? So we've already talked about like this potentially is not a Phil or Matt decision essentially.
Hmm.
Um, is this a David versus Goliath, an Xbox versus the Microsoft board that the current leadership will not win?
Yes. That's
Yeah, I
I
was starting to
think
feel the same way.
yeah, I think here's the thing. A lot of people are calling for new Xbox leadership. I don't think this is generally an Xbox leadership problem. I
Right.
think this is Microsoft is taking over the gaming decisions. And even if you were to get rid of Phil and Sarah or Matt Booty or Aaron Greenberg or, a combination of those people, who are you going to bring in to fix this again, right? Like who are you going to bring in that's knowledgeable enough about games, who is passionate about the brand, who is passionate about the community, like maybe they haven't made the best business decisions or anything, but you can't deny that this leadership team is at least passionate about Xbox and is trying to do, you know, I think this is a Microsoft board shareholder uh decision and influence on what's happening now. And I honestly would probably argue that Phil and Sarah at some point are really upset on some level that this is all happening.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said earlier, that we need to see Phil's feet held to the fire, and I maintain that that's true. Like that
Hmm.
absolutely has to happen.
Yes,
It's
I
it's
agree. I agree with
non-negotiable.
that. I agree with that.
No, no, no. I'm getting to my butt. I'm getting to my butt.
But
But I think it's also important to realize this probably is not completely on him. Like you hear that dude talk, and I feel as somebody who's pretty involved in the Xbox ecosystem, I don't feel like it's all just like talk from him.
mhm.
This dude does play a lot of games. I side note, I thought it was very funny that he got nuked in Fallout 76 after this news came out. I thought that was hilarious.
Mhm.
Um, I think that Microsoft doesn't understand how cautious they need to be here overall,
Mhm.
because right now you are facing the possibility of, if you oust if you oust Phil Spencer, that's going to cause even like the hardest of Xbox fanboys to take a second look at you and be like, whoa, Phil couldn't even keep his job.
Mhm.
Sarah has been a huge reason why companies like Square and Atlas have
Mhm.
come to the table.
Yep.
She is a huge reason why basically any international deal was getting done at this point. She
Yeah.
was big behind getting, even like back in 2020, when she kind of like burst onto the scene for a lot of us, she was pretty instrumental in getting the Bungie deal to get the Destiny expansions onto Game Pass.
Mhm.
Like, there is, at a certain point, you have to understand that, yeah, you need to let people who know what the fuck they're doing make the decisions, because Satya Nadella, this dude wanted to close down Xbox years ago, right? And Phil
Mhm.
convinced him not to.
Mhm.
He was going to spin Xbox off. I think that he is at a very interesting juncture where he has to choose to either trust the leadership, or do you have anybody else that you think could possibly do better? Because I don't know anybody that you could just walk in off the street and hire to come run fucking Xbox.
Yeah, I don't.
There's certainly nobody at Xbox that I trust.
No. No, 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 no. I think I mean, I
Like,
don't I mean, who would I mean, is there a list of names somewhere that you would bring in?
no.
I
I just I the only reason I'm even bringing this up is because just before we went live, it was announced that Herman Hulst is going to be the co-CEO of PlayStation going forward.
yeah.
And that's the dude who
I was
started
gonna
as
bring
a
that up.
studio. He, rose up from being studio director to director of, SIE, and now is going to run PlayStation in general. Or
Mhm.
excuse me, ran PlayStation Studios and now is going to run SIE in general.
Yeah.
Um, with his Japanese counterpart, whose name is eluding me off the
Hideki
top of my head.
Nishino.
Yes.
I'm looking at the story right now.
So, like, I look at something like that and I'm like, who would be the Xbox equivalent? Like, somebody like, I don't know,
Phil
like,
was the Xbox equivalent.
I mean, yeah, he really was. He'd been there since the beginning. Like, Phil kind of was the guy, but like, if Phil were to be ousted, I mean, it would have to be someone like, I don't know, like Todd Howard wouldn't take the job.
No.
Um,
I
I
mean,
like, I don't even know who you go to. Like, Josh Sawyer would never take it, obviously.
yeah.
Tim Schafer would never take it. Like, you have these great creatives that just don't want anywhere near that. They just want to make cool shit.
Mhm.
Which is both a blessing and a curse, clearly. Um, I think ultimately what would discourage people from wanting to take that job is you are beholden to the Microsoft board. Like, Sony correctly understands that PlayStation is one of their only like profitable divisions.
Yeah. It's their most profitable division at this
It
point.
is pretty much what's saving them.
Mhm.
And Microsoft clearly does not feel the same way about Xbox. Xbox is a money sink as far as they're concerned on a sheet. I can't help but wonder if things would have been different if they would have just, instead of spending 68 billion on Call of Duty. And again, I really feel like this was kind of forced on them. We've thought this last summer, we think it now.
Mhm.
Um, what if you had just taken 1 billion of that and distributed it among all the studios that you owned?
Mhm.
Somebody did the math, and if they had done that, they could have afforded to keep all the employees at all four studios they shuttered this week employed for over 17 years with benefits
Mhm.
and pay raises. That is insane. That's absolutely like just batshit to me.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think it was just for those four studios. I think it was for the entire portfolio.
Yeah.
So when I see something like that, that just screams that this is corporate greed. They are just determined to make things go up like a percentage point or a fraction of a percentage point. And at some point, that's unsustainable. And I really need Microsoft leadership to realize that now rather than 6 months from now.
Mhm.
Because if another round of layoffs really is coming, you better hope that it's just the trim the fat option and it's not the let's close studios. Because if you start closing now, you're really going to be closing auteur studios. You know, you're going to be closing Ninja Theory potentially could be doing. I think Imran Khan said this. He was like, I can't imagine what's going through their minds. They're 2 weeks out from releasing a potential Game of the Year nominee, and they don't know if their jobs are going to be safe a year from now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is like when Phil bought these studios, he knew what he was buying. There was a purpose
Mhm.
behind getting Obsidian, behind getting In Exile, behind bringing Undead Labs and Playground properly into the fold, behind buying Compulsion, behind buying, Double Fine. Like In Exile, like these studios did special things that nobody else at Xbox did.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why we thought. I mean, that's why we thought it was such a left turn when they bought Activision Blizzard, right? I mean, it just
Yep.
didn't fit their portfolio. It just didn't fit what they were aiming for. You know?
It didn't fit it, and it is, man, I don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
I'm running out of things to say, but like the Xbox as we knew it is not existing anymore.
Mhm.
This was summed up in a piece that Ryan McCaffrey wrote over at IGN. He spoke to two former Xbox executives, and well, let's be totally clear. Like one of them was totally Seamus Blackley. Like Seamus had to have been one of them, and they said that this is that they empathize with Phil. Like they understand this probably wasn't a Phil decision, but that this is not Xbox anymore. This is Microsoft Gaming.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, they kind of made that clear when they bought Activision. They made that very clear that this is being referred to as Microsoft Gaming now.
And I,
Xbox is just a fun little name they can put on things now.
and I wonder. Here's the thing that I've been wondering the last couple days is that I wonder if when this current leadership ends up leaving or going away or getting fired or whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
is if they just transition out of the Xbox name and just call it Microsoft Gaming.
I think they will. Like once they're no longer making a physical box, I think
Mhm.
that's where it's going to go.
And either close some of the studios or sell
Divest
them
them or
off,
something. Yeah.
or yeah, that's where my head is at this
Yeah.
you know. So and it's sad because I don't want to think like that, because they definitely, these studios are, you know, a lot of them are. I mean, Ninja Theory, and we talk about Ninja Theory all the time and how important Hellblade is and how great Enslaved and Heavenly Sword are. And I love the DMC reboot. I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion, but like they're a great, talented studio who makes important games, and
Yeah.
you're and I don't want them to go away, you know?
Yeah, I saw somebody saying the same about Double Fine, like, oh, Double Fine used to put
Yeah.
out like 2 to 3 games every couple of years before they were bought by Microsoft. And it's like, yeah, but they also aren't having to make that many tiny games to keep
Yeah.
their studio afloat. Like Microsoft didn't buy. I don't think Phil Spencer went in and bought them because they made Costume Quest and like Brutal Legend in the same year. I think he went in and bought them because he realized like they can make very unique experiences that maybe like don't sell well, but we can put them in as part of a Game Pass sub. The
Yeah.
problem is now with the big acquisitions of ZeniMax and Activision, the checks have to be cashed now,
Yeah.
and studios like Double Fine and Ninja Theory aren't going to sell like 10 million copies of their next game.
No.
You have to be willing to eat crow on those to get your awards and get your award-winning games, and let Call of Duty and World of Warcraft and Diablo and Overwatch and Gears of War and Forza and Sea of Thieves like make up the slack, and Minecraft, like make
Mhm.
up all the slack here so that you can have those auteur moments.
Yeah, and that was I think that obviously that was Phil's plan, and we're
Yeah,
finally getting to that point where like, okay, obviously Gears will be some sort of Gears, their game as a service. Sea of Thieves is a game as a service. Minecraft, Halo, and now we're getting cool stuff like Clockwork Revolution and South of Midnight and Hellblade, and some of these other games that like game gamers want, and like the casual people can still buy Madden and Halo and all these other things, right? But like they have the chance to do both,
right.
and they are just fucking it up,
This is so the best tweet that I saw about all of this was, we just got done with this whole Helldivers controversy with Sony, right?
Yeah.
And it said Sony is run by executives who would drown standing outside in the rain, but Microsoft is the 8-year champion of slamming your dick in the car door.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's how it feels. Like it feels like, and McCaffrey likes to use this analogy. It feels like they set out all these rakes and then they just go out and they start stepping on them. It's like a fucking Tom and Jerry cartoon out here.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It makes me angry to think about it.
Yeah.
That a studio like Tango, it had to pay the price for. Microsoft's leadership has to be looking at this, going, "Oh man, we fucked up big time." Like I would argue, it's less of Phil that needs to be interrogated, and get Satya Nadella's ass down there to that press conference. Get his ass out to that showcase because he needs to be questioned also.
Yeah.
They're not going to have one of those little leadership forums afterwards like they did last year. I guarantee you, because everyone's questions are going to be, why the fuck did you do this? And the person who probably ordered it ain't going to be anywhere in the vicinity. I would be like, you need to start directing these questions to Satya, but also like, I don't give a fuck. So, but
Yeah.
like,
But
the last thing I want to come back to is, we always see the story about how Satoru Iwata took a pay cut rather than lay people off.
yep.
And I don't think that I don't know if Phil taking a pay cut would have helped immensely. Like, I think he makes, like, his salary is like millions of dollars a year, right? Maybe he cut his salary for a year or two, because I don't think that dude needs any more money. Let's be totally honest. Most rich people don't need any more money. Once you've got like $1 million, you should just get a certificate that says I'm a millionaire at the end.
I'm a millionaire at the end.
But like, take a pay cut, take a fucking pay cut. Like, maybe that could have been, like, I don't know if that would have helped at all, but been like, hey, if I take a pay cut, will that be enough to save one of these studios or to fold them in with somebody else? Maybe. Would that be enough?
Right.
Would that be enough to save Tango? But then the thing comes up, well, he can't do that every time a studio is in danger, right? And I don't know. It's just, I also hate that story gets invoked so much, because it's like, it's not remotely the same thing either.
Yeah, I mean,
games cost a fraction of what they do now.
Yeah, and also like Japanese business works way different than American business. So,
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this. It's upsetting. It's very clear that the Xbox leadership is being overtaken by
the board,
and whether that's, whether they've made mistakes or not, which, they have made a lot of mistakes over the last 10 years, right? But
they have
done a lot
of
they
have we're definitely not trying to argue that they haven't.
No, but they've also done a lot of great things, and I think their plan was finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And
it was a bright fucking light too, man.
Yeah.
Like, we're coming up on, like, we've both hailed, like, okay, this is the year. Like, you've got at the bare minimum, you've got Hellblade, you've got Avowed, you've got Indie, you've got another flight sim, you've probably got Towerborn coming out. Like, you got 5 games there. You've got expansions for Starfield. You've got ESO. Like, even leaving out Activision Blizzard, you've got all that. You add in the Activision of it all, you've got fucking Call of Duty. You got a Black Ops game coming out this year. You've got Diablo's expansion, which can be huge. You got another World of Warcraft expansion.
You've got Overwatch Heroes, which, I mean, we have opinions on Overwatch, but
yeah, Sea of Thieves has gone multi-plat.
Yeah.
Like, Minecraft is still out there cooking. Like, you've got a great year of, like, profitability ahead of you, and then you do this. Like, you stepped on a fucking rake right before the most important part of your year. And I just don't understand this. I'll never understand this. As long as I'm around this industry, I'll never get why this particular sequence of events had to happen, because it does not make sense to me. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, Josh. I really don't. And it's upsetting as a fan of Xbox and just a fan of games in general. Like, it sucks. It really sucks. And I hope everybody that was affected by this, and clearly everybody, unfortunately, who will continue to be affected by this, lands on their feet, and maybe we'll get a couple cool new studios out of this who will continue to make awesome games, right? Like, that's
yeah.
like,
I mean, that's all
lining, I guess.
Like, Jan Johannes should be like him, and Harvey Smith should be two of the most sought after talents in the entire industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
like unquestionably they
I
should be
mean,
the most sought after talents right now.
if I was PlayStation, I'd be on the phone right now and be like, "What do you want?"
Oh, dude, I'd be fucking calling them and being like, "You want to come up?" I'd be calling Harvey Smith and being like, "You want to come set up your own studio under SIE?"
Yeah.
Which I don't think he would ever agree to again. By the way, not that he had a say in this one either, but I don't think he would ever agree to that.
Right.
Like, no, I want to be independent, this and that. I also saw people trying to be like, "Oh, Xbox is the American embracer," and it's like, no, let's not get carried away here. Like, yes, this is very bad, but they are not
Xbox is
embracer.
making money.
They're not, yeah, they're not embracer quite yet. Like, they're on the path. They're on the path for sure. But like, I don't know. Like now, the rumor about like more cuts coming is going to be looming over your showcase too. Like, this has been a terrible PR event for Xbox. Like, you had to have known how this was going to go.
Yeah.
You had to have known. Like, Phil had to have. There's a reason why Phil Spencer hasn't made fucking comments in a week. He had to know how this was going to go down.
Yeah.
So I really hope that anybody who gets a chance to talk to him at Summer Showcase, him, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond,
man, and now they have to go out there and
Jill
like
Smith.
they all have to pretend like they care about the games and the
Yep.
community and the
Yep.
gamers. Like,
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
this summer showcase is going to take a very drastic tone turn. I feel like in the next, whatever they've been preparing for, it's going to take a turn, right? It's just, man. All I can say is they better not just like script out that bullshit this time, right? Because it's very clearly whether, Sarah and Phil feel like they care about the gamers and stuff, Microsoft clearly does not. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, when we look at the original studios that they bought up, and even to an extent Bethesda, every one of those studios was in trouble or had a long-standing relationship with Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, like, I mean, we look at Obsidian, we look at Double Fine, we look at InXile. All those studios were going to Kickstarter to try and get their games funded and couldn't even do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like $3 million games, they couldn't get funded. It makes me wonder, like, man, why don't you just give Josh Sawyer like $50 million and tell him cook and make a Pillars of Eternity 3 for you?
Right.
Like, InXile, and like, InXile is trying something new, and like Compulsion is trying something new. Like, all these studios are trying new things, and it should be a time that is so exciting for us. We know there's multiple projects at all these studios, and yet just this is hanging over it. Just like the 343 disaster was hanging over the launch of the Series X and over most of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It took Joe Staten coming in to fix that one, and the minute he left, oh surprise, it sucks ass again.
Yeah.
Like, at a certain point, something has to change here.
Yeah, this is absurd. I mean, like, yeah. There's some baffling decisions. I don't know. I feel like I'm screaming in circles now, Josh.
Yep, I am too. We got to move on.
This is upsetting. Like I said, I hope some great new studios are born out of this. I hope everybody that was affected finds something, because there's clearly a lot of talent especially at Tango and at Arkane, right? There's clearly a lot of talented people there.
I actually wonder if like some of those who were laid off from like Alpha Dog will be picked up by Bethesda Montreal. They also work on mobile stuff. Like, they made Fallout Shelter, for example. Mm-hmm. They've made Elder Scrolls Castles. They did the card game and stuff. There's been rumors about a Fallout Shelter 2. Like, maybe some of Alpha Dog was only like a 15-person team.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot convince me that was like meaningful on your returns in any way. But I digress.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's we have one more story to talk about tonight.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, shifting gears.
It started good and then it got bad today.
Yeah. Square Enix is they're hinting at a quote aggressive multi-platform strategy amid falling profits, looking at Nintendo and Microsoft as ecosystems where people can quote enjoy their games. But later today, we found out that parts of their North American and European studios and branches have been informed that some people will be laid off.
Yeah, it's in IT, QA, and community, I believe, for the most part. That is, God. Talk about stepping on fucking rakes.
Yeah. There's yeah, I mean, how do we want to talk about the bad first and then talk about the good? Because like,
Yeah, let's talk about the bad first.
yeah. So more layoffs, clearly.
Yep.
Square Enix clearly has a vision for their, you know, th- their road moving forward, right? And we've known they've obviously been cutting their Western arm for a while, right? I mean, they sold off all those studios to Embracer. They let IO go with the Hitman license, and they wanted to focus on bigger Japanese role playing games and Outriders, I guess. Or like, you know, uh, but yeah, I mean, this seems like a continuation down that path, Josh. Unfortunately, at this point.
Yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about like the bad on this one. For once, it was like, well, Square Enix had good news. Something inevitably bad had to come out too. That was literally my reaction when I saw this. Like in the middle of the night, I was like, oh, well, something terrible is going to have to happen, and here you go.
Yeah,
This is them further getting rid of their North American teams, which they already don't have much left of.
yeah,
That's the way that I'm seeing this. I just this is ridiculous.
yeah.
This
It's
is absolutely ridiculous. I don't have anything else to say beyond that. Um, the
I, ugh. Go ahead.
I don't
Sorry.
know.
I
No, I was gonna just move straight on to the good.
yeah. I just like I said, this makes sense for the direction they're going anyway.
Right.
But like, it still really sucks. You still need some sort of Western community people, even for your Japanese games, right? I mean, you still need
You
that.
would think so.
Uh, Hope everybody affected finds something. That's all I can say.
I hope so too. But I want to talk about their decision here because this is in line with what we're seeing from Microsoft, what we're seeing from Sony. We have to get our games on more platforms. The only game I think that is in question, because they made it very clear they're going to make less AAA games. They canceled a bunch of games today that we didn't even know about. Less AAA games and but better quality essentially. I have to wonder if, and they made it explicitly clear we want them on PlayStation, we want them on Switch, we want them on PC, we want them on Xbox. This is in line with, them bringing Final Fantasy 14 to Xbox finally after all these years. You have to wonder if the last game of theirs that will be exclusive is part 3 of Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Because, or if even when that comes out, will the entire trilogy just release on Xbox and on PC at the same time?
Yeah, I would think like there might be some ultimate edition of all three games that ends up coming out for
Have to.
everything, right? I mean, that would be my thought.
That would be my thought as well. I think that one of the other ones that we have to consider is um, if they want to get games on as many platforms as possible, both, Microsoft and uh, Square have now said it. Does that mean that they're going to stop pursuing like the absolute like pinnacle of graphics? Because we're kind of hitting a brick wall when it comes to that personally. Um, would that mean that you're willing to compromise to meet Nintendo's specs a little bit more? You know,
Yeah,
for the next Switch, or give time for Nintendo to like kind of catch up,
yeah,
because there's no denying, like at this point, if you're cutting Nintendo out of your ecosystem, you're not making as much money as you could.
right,
Which is funny to say because like for years that was a joke, right? Like we haven't felt that way probably since like the GameCube.
right,
And even then it was, well, if you're not doing PS2, then you're losing money, Capcom 5.
right.
So it feels like for the first time in so long, like maybe since even like the Super Nintendo, it's like, yeah, you have to be on a Nintendo platform at this point if you want to maximize your profits.
Yeah,
You have to.
yeah,
So because we couldn't say that about N64, we could kind of say that a little bit about the GameCube, I guess. You couldn't say it at all about the Wii because the Wii was vaporware. The Wii U, okay,
hmm,
and the Switch is just so far behind technologically.
yeah,
That like, yeah, that it's funny that we talked about like when Doom and Doom Eternal came, like they made all this money, and it's because we had Doom as a 2016 game, like it was even pushing the limits of what the Switch could do.
yeah.
So
I mean, you want to hear a game that really pushes the Switch from at a launch standpoint. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I've been hopping back into that series, and let me tell you, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is
I'll raise you one.
it's a
Breath of the
choker.
Wild.
Yeah, yeah. Xenoblade runs worse than Breath of the Wild, though. It runs at like 540p and like 20 frames a second. It's rough. Um, but yeah, I judging by what we've been hearing by Nintendo's next console, I don't think we're going to have that problem initially,
No,
at least.
but like Square has to understand. Square finally got to the point where it's like, yeah, we're actively like, even if it's not a ton of money, like they're clearly losing more money by not being on Nintendo consoles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think that it's necessarily, oh, we're losing a ton of money by not being on Xbox. Like, sure, probably in like another million or two units of their games. And I think that you would see a decrease probably in your PlayStation sales because people, might want, like myself, prefer to play with an Xbox controller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know that I'm also like few and far between on that spectrum. And it's just like there's different audiences for different platforms, I feel, right? But like that's why like, I always felt like Phil's message was really good, when everybody can play, we all win,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I am all for them being more of a publisher if it just means that you get good fucking games out. Like if going to other platforms is what's going to save these smaller studios, then great. Like let's not delude ourselves. Like there's a pretty good chance that, Obsidian or In Exile or, Double Fine, like probably don't exist at this point. Like one or more of those studios could no longer, Compulsion especially,
Mm-hmm.
like might not even exist anymore if they hadn't been bought when they were.
Yeah, I mean
They bought so cheap on these studios too.
I mean, going back to Compulsion real quick, they were scrounging their couch cushions to pay their employees when Microsoft bought them. Like that,
And they only had 40 employees.
yeah,
They had 40 employees when they were bought. They now have 110.
yeah.
2 games in production. Obsidian has ballooned. Obviously Mojang has grown exponentially under them. Like, I don't think there's any doubt that like, yeah, they've been allowed to like staff up, but now it's like, okay, we allowed you to staff up. We expect a bigger return as a result, and that just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a really interesting show. It's gonna be really like weird showcase. Like next week or not next week, next episode we're gonna be doing our predictions, and like yeah, we're excited for a showcase, but goddamn, this is a gigantic storm hanging over that.
Yeah.
We should be, and we said this about the Helldiver stuff too. Like we should be so excited about the Sony showcase coming up, but the Helldivers and Ghost of Tsushima controversies with PC, the weirdness of the Bungie stuff that happened. Sony did mass layoffs, And it's like all that's kind of hanging over, and they're about to do a showcase in like another week or so.
Mm-hmm.
They're at least not doing an in-person event, so they won't be like Herman Hulst isn't going to sit there and be taken to task for anything. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, when do we stop making excuses for the executives? And I think that like we sufficiently reached to that point now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have anything else to really add.
Yeah,
You?
I really don't either. I just it's great that Square seems to want to support Xbox. It seems
Yeah.
that getting rid of their Western arms or parts of it is questionable, but overall, like you said, when everybody plays, we all win, and
Yep.
I think a lot of the Xbox community is itching to play Japanese role playing games. I mean, how often does stuff like Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey come up recently? Uh, all the time, it feels like at this point. So, man, Lost
I
Odyssey.
mean, there's that. There's you look at games like, and then there's just inexplicable business decisions. Octopath Traveler came to, as far as I know, the first Octopath is still not available on PlayStation.
It's coming.
It's coming. Okay, so it came to Xbox before that. And I remember when it happened, we were all shocked. We were like, "What the fuck?" And then Octopath Traveler 2 hasn't even sniffed the platform.
Yeah,
So
the deal was that Square, let's see, Nintendo had exclusive publishing rights for that game for 5 years.
okay,
It ended when when Microsoft put it on Game Pass, but the Game Pass deal supposedly had a clause in it that they could not put it on PlayStation until
Got
it
you.
left.
I personally think that's really fucking funny. It's still the silliest thing to
Yeah.
do, like the silliest game to do that with, like a game that's already been available on its intended platform for years, and then you just do it to be fucking petty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what comes of this. I hope that Square gets everything streamlined. I mean, that to me that indicates that they really want to get remake part 3, and they want to get Kingdom Hearts 4 out the door as quickly as possible.
You know what's great though? The remake part 3, 90% of the team retained.
Yeah, still the same team that also worked on remake part 1. So
yeah,
that definitely helps and lets you don't have to restaff and things like that. Like that really does help. That's why part of why like the games over at Atlas have done so well for years. They retain the same like core leadership at minimum.
Yeah. And one of the
Really
teams
cool.
one of the teams that does expansions for Final Fantasy 14 helping on Kingdom Hearts 4.
That would make sense. They really want that game out because they know like that's a big profit generator for them.
Oh yeah.
And that's going to be on
especially
as much as they can put it on.
Especially because if you played Kingdom Hearts 3 and you played the DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3 and see where the story we'll say what happened in the story, I think there's a lot of people who are interested in seeing why it didn't end at 3. So that's all I'm going to say as a Kingdom Hearts fan.
Yeah.
Oh, the DLC was bad. Oh, it was bad. $40 for that DLC, and it was just a reskinned version of the ending that was already there. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Anyways, I don't get me started, Josh. Help.
I won't just get us out of here, Corey. Abandon ship.
Abandon ship. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this interesting episode of Xbox Casuals. You can hear us every other Tuesday on your platform of choice. Check out Tower Casuals, our sister podcast, every Friday. Ramping some stuff back up for that. Episode 200, what, 3 weeks from now? 3 weeks?
Yes, May 30th.
I am working diligently to get that live streamed.
I am working on getting us some guests for the show.
Ooh.
And I have been working. If you're not part of the Tower Casuals Discord, that is our primary show. I would encourage you to go join it. One of our guys, Nerd Generalist, is running a really, really, really cool experience within it right now. He basically has come up with his version of an ARG. It has been really special to watch that unfold. We're going to be doing a fashion contest. We're letting you share your favorite memories of both Destiny and or the show for some giveaways. I've got prizes. Corey's got prizes. We're going to talk about those on Thursday.
I've got 3 prizes, Josh.
Corey's got 3 prizes. I've got at least 2 or 3. I've got some silver to give away. This is 200. 200 is a pretty big milestone, man.
It is. Man.
So
I can't believe we've been doing it for that long, man.
I can't either. We started it during a fairly interesting time in our lives. So
yep. And in more ways than one. So yeah, come join the Discord. Check out Tower Casuals episode 200, Josh. We're ready.
We're ready.
So, Josh, thank you for your time tonight, as always.
Always.
Where can we find you?
Twitter, Josh_Finn, 2 N's.
2 N's.
2 N's, baby. 2 N's.
Maybe there'll be some special merch for episode 200.
Ooh.
With 2 N's.
With 2 N's.
You can
stupid.
You can find me at I am Corey HD on the social media platforms, wherever, I guess. Join the Discord, follow us. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.